Hello everyone and welcome to Random Review Fridays. This is a new segment on this channel where I pick two random movies, two movies that are completely unrelated, but may share one or two things in common. It can be two movies from my personal collection, it can be from Redbox, from Netflix, from Hulu, from Crunchyroll, any on-demand service you can think of. If there's a way to view it, I will be reviewing it. And you, the audience, can also decide what two movies I'll be reviewing next. All you have to do is choose two movies that are completely unrelated that you think might have something in common. Just leave it in the comments down below and I'll be reviewing it on the next episode. But for today, I chose two movies that I had never seen before. Two movies from a specific genre of film that I'm not the biggest fan of, but I cannot deny that it went on to becoming a big influence on the slasher film genre. And these are the Giallo movies. If you're not familiar with the Giallo movies, these were movies that were made in the 1960s and were very popular here in America in the 1970s. These were mystery suspense films, whodunit kind of movies where you didn't know who the killer was, and there was usually a little plot twist at the end. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of this genre. There's a couple of movies from this genre that I do like. There's one with George Lazenby called Who Saw Her Die that I like. There's another one called Torso. So those two I like, but for the most part, I don't have many of those movies. But I was picking up a collection from Full Moon. If you're not familiar with Full Moon, they are the ones who made Puppet Master, Subspecies, and Killjoy. And back in 2013, they started releasing a lot of the big box VHS tapes. And they were also releasing some of them on DVD in a line of films called Full Moon Grindhouse Collection. And I decided to pick a couple of them up. And the two that I picked up are from the Grindhouse collection, and they are Giallo movies. And I didn't know until I started viewing them that they were Giallo movies. Now, for what they are, they're not terrible. I'll be reviewing these two, and I'll be telling you the similarities that they have. And you'll start noticing as I'm talking about the story how similar they are, even though they are made by two different directors, completely different writers, and they were made many years apart. So the first movie that I saw was Tormentor. This was released in the early 70s, and I think it goes under another name, but I don't remember what name it goes by. And it's a story about a photographer who witnesses the murder of a young girl. She sees it through a telescope, and she sees this killer killing a young woman, and she's trying to convince the authorities that someone was killed. No, obviously someone was killed, but she doesn't know who it is because she didn't see the person's face. Now, the movie is interesting in the beginning, but then it just kind of falls flat because for a large portion of the film, I would say at least 20 minutes of the movie, the protagonist disappears. It follows more a story of the husband who is being accused as one of the suspects who might be involved in the killings. So the movie tries too hard to put the blame on other people, kind of like confuse you, and it becomes very convoluted for no real reason. And one of the most annoying things about this movie is the soundtrack. It keeps playing the piano music. I guess they had no other budget, like they had no budget for another soundtrack because it's the same piano song playing over and over again. And there's even a scene where they ask one of the characters to play a song on the piano, and he plays the same goddamn song from the soundtrack. It gets annoying after a while. But I can't deny that the movie has its moments. It has some good scenes. But sadly, this movie is released in poor condition. Charles Band, who is in charge of Full Moon, has stated that a lot of these movies have been lost. You can't find the original reels. Some of them are coming from VHS tapes, but I think they're probably third or fourth generation VHS tapes because they look really, really bad. This movie is not terrible, but it's only a movie that you would watch once. The general audience might not enjoy this movie, but if you like suspense films, European sleazy kind of movies where there's unnecessary nudity. That's another thing with these movies. They have a lot of simulated sex and unnecessary nudity. Like, it's just for no reason. This girl just pops up naked just to show us boobs. I mean, I'm not complaining about, it's great to see boobs, but every other scene, you're seeing boobs, it's just like, this is unnecessary. But regardless, there's a lot of hilarious moments. There's a moment early in the movie where the protagonist, who ends up disappearing for 20 minutes of the film, is trying to tell an officer who ends up being a fireman. He says, "I'm not an officer, I'm a fireman." And he goes, "You have to help me. You know, they're killing someone. I'm sorry, I can't help you." And she says, "Oh, to hell with you." And it literally cuts to another scene that has nothing to do with that. This is something with this movie. I'm not sure if they lost a lot of footage or the movie is just really poorly edited, because it just jumps from one thing to the next just so randomly. So I know it sounds terrible, but it has some unintentional humor. So I enjoyed it for that. But most people might consider this a one-time watch. Now, the next movie, also from the Full Moon's Grindhouse collection, is Trauma. The funny thing is that this cover has nothing to do with the movie. Actually, this one has nothing to do with the movie either. Those are two things they have in common. Covers have nothing to do with the goddamn movie. But this one, Trauma, is the story of a couple of girls in school who are being killed randomly. You don't know who's killing them. And the movie starts off with someone already being killed, and a police officer, a detective, trying to find out who is responsible for these murders. The movie starts off very interesting, with a good tone, but then it becomes very convoluted, unnecessarily, and you don't really know the motive behind it. That's another thing with some of these movies. Like, sometimes you don't know what's the real motive behind some of the killings. Again, the transfer is not very good. It's a full frame, and it feels like it's a really poor pan and scan. Like, they took it from, like, literally just chopped the size. They didn't even try. But again, there's a little sign at the beginning telling you that these movies have been lost for a long time, that the negatives, they're nowhere to be found, so they used VHS transfers. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but, you know, it is what it is. If you can enjoy the movies with the picture quality that you're getting, and again, these are not great movies, so you have to enjoy it for what they are. But this movie has, like I said, a couple of good moments, and another thing that these two movies have in common is, again, the soundtrack. They keep repeating the same melody every, like, 2 or 3 minutes. I'm guessing they had no one else to compose any other music. And the music they play in this movie kind of sounds for something that would be more appropriate in a cheap porno. And there's really no simulated sex in this one. There's an unnecessarily long shower scene where everyone's naked. Again, I'm not complaining, it's nice to see boobs, but it's a very long scene, like 5 minutes for no real reason. Just, oh my god, I'm touching myself and all this stuff, and it's very random. But anyway, the soundtrack in this movie is really ridiculous. It sounds like a softcore porn. The soundtrack, that is. But when you figure out who the killer is, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Because, for one, you don't really know the purpose of why this person was killing. Like, you do kind of find out, but it really doesn't answer a lot of the questions you had in your mind. Like, how did this person end up being with this person? Why? It is what it is. But regardless of how terrible these two movies are, if you're in a group of friends watching it, I think you might enjoy them for how terrible they are. There's a lot of unintentional humor. There's a scene in this movie, in Trauma, where you find out one character, I'm not going to mention who it is, not that it really matters, but you find out one of these characters was involved, and he literally tells the detective, I was involved, I did this, I killed him, I helped, and he literally throws himself, without even thinking, just kills himself. It's supposed to be a very serious scene, but you can tell it's a doll that they threw from the bridge to the water. It's so obvious, and you just start laughing. You can't help it but, to laugh. So for those type of scenes that appear in this movie, which are not very much, you'll laugh. So I got these two movies from that Full Moon Grindhouse collection, but you can watch these for $4.99 on their website. For a month, you pay $4.99 a month, you can watch these and many, many more. But I ended up picking up these because I'm not going to lie, I kind of fell for the covers. That has that kind of like retro kind of look. And originally, I was going to get these as a big box VHS. Good thing I didn't, because they're so overpriced. They're like $50. And from what I heard, they're not originals, they're replicas. And there's a whole long story on that. I'm going to leave a video on the description down below so you can check out the claims that the VHS tapes that they released are not authentic. In the background, I don't know if you might see, I have some of them. Some of them are from the re-releases, but it's not really worth paying $50 for those VHS tapes. These came out like $4.99 if you got them on their site. They've ranged in prices, but these were the two cheapest ones. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this review. If there's any movie you would want me to review or go over, please leave it in the comments down below. I will be gladly reviewing it on the next episode. So yeah, these two movies, like I said, they're enjoyable for how terrible they are. It's not to say that all Giallo films are bad. There are good ones. Like I said, there's Who Saw Her Die and Torso, which are two good ones if you're interested. But most of them tend to be a little slow for my taste. And it's not to say that I don't like slower films, but it's usually unnecessarily slow. They add a lot of stuff that's not really needed. And these two are not the best Giallo films. So I hope you enjoy this review. Until next time. Bye.